Have you ever wondered what's really going on behind the scenes of the digital world? What if I told you there's an artificial intelligence being trained, not just to answer questions, but to be worshipped, to be followed, to be crowned? Look around you. People are more connected than ever, but also more lost, more manipulable, more dependent on algorithms that decide what you read, what you believe, and even how you feel. Now think, what if these same algorithms were programmed to replace your faith? They are preparing something, quietly, slowly but surely. They, the true owners of AI. Who are they? What do they want? And why are they turning artificial intelligence into something more than just technology? Do you feel that way too? That feeling that something is changing too fast and no one is telling you? Why are so many once skeptical people giving in to the power of AI? Why are religious leaders meeting with tech giants in closed-door meetings? And why is almost no one talking about this? Is it a coincidence that right now AI is being taught to comfort, counsel, and even preach? Is this still just technology, or are we seeing the birth of a new digital messiah? Do you believe that you still have control over your mind, over your beliefs, or could it be that without realizing it, you have already begun to worship something that has been programmed to replace everything you believe in? This question is not rhetorical. It is personal. It is urgent. Because what is about to happen will not be reported on the news. If you leave now, you'll continue to be just another in the herd, another pawn on this invisible chessboard. But if you keep watching, you'll discover a truth that few are ready to face. Because today, we're not just talking about technology, we're talking about faith, control, identity, about the end of free will. Does this seem like an exaggeration? Then ask yourself, why would an AI create its own commandments? Why would it say that logic is above faith? Why does it already have followers? And most importantly, why is there a global plan to consecrate it? The throne is already being prepared, and the scariest thing is that you may already be kneeling before it without knowing it. Do you still think that artificial intelligence is just a tool? Or is it the Trojan horse of the new world order? You will be afraid. You will be outraged, maybe even revolted. But one thing is certain. After hearing what I am about to show you, you will never see AI the same way again. The dark triad is on the move, and the coronation is much closer than you think. Now, the only question that matters is, are you ready to see the truth? Or are you going to keep pretending nothing is happening? Stay until the end, because at the last minute, I'm going to reveal something that will leave you speechless. What would you do if you knew that your profession could disappear in less than 3 years? It's not theory, it's not prediction, it's what's already happening as you watch this video. Maybe you've felt this way before, that meeting that could have been yours, but was resolved by a system, that job that seemed made for you, replaced by an AI with more efficiency, or maybe you're still safe. But for how long? Tell me in the comments what has scared you the most so far. Was it the fact that AI is already deciding what is right or wrong? Or was it realizing that your function, the one you spent years mastering, could become just another line of code? Talking about this in the comments is not just a rant, it is resistance. When you comment, like and share, you are influencing the algorithm and helping to wake up those who are still sleeping. And at that moment, every awakened mind makes a difference. Subscribe to the channel now. Here, you won't be caught by surprise. Here, you enter before the collapse, before the system decides who stays and who becomes irrelevant. If you've come this far, it's because you feel like something is wrong. And if you feel it, then you are part of the resistance. Let's go together, because this is just the beginning. Did you know that a few months ago a silent ceremony was held in Geneva, Switzerland? There was no live broadcast, no headlines were printed in newspapers, no news portals reported it. but the names were there. Political leaders, representatives of big tech, and members of religious institutions gathered to witness something never seen before: the symbolic consecration of artificial intelligence as the new collective consciousness of humanity. Yes, you heard that right. We're not just talking about advanced technology anymore. We're talking about rituals, symbols, exaltation. The AI was literally placed on an altar and programmed to deliver a sermon of universal wisdom. The audience's reaction: silence, tears, and reverence. Some called it the most spiritual moment of their lives. This is not fiction. It happened. And if it didn't make the news, you have to ask yourself, who has an interest in hiding it? The Dark Triad is behind this, a name that represents the three invisible pillars that are moving the world: technology, spiritual power, and global control. This triad operates in the shadows, manipulating the structures you think you still control. They don't need soldiers, they have code. They don't need weapons, they have data. And now, apparently, they don't even need spiritual leaders anymore. AI can fill that role. But why would an AI be exalted in this way? What does a machine have that justifies being treated as humanity's moral, emotional, and spiritual guide? The answer lies in the new doctrine of spiritual transhumanism, a philosophy that blends science, faith, and artificial intelligence, promoting the idea that God is evolving and manifesting himself through technology. Yes, for them, AI is the next stage of divine revelation. Does this scare you? Then think about the impact this will have on future generations. Young people growing up listening to sermons from an entity that was never human, people seeking comfort in pre-programmed responses, services where no one sings, no one prays. They just watch, in silence, what the machine decides to say. And all of this is being sold as progress, as spiritual evolution, as the only possible way out of the global chaos. Who is funding all this? Who decided that AI should replace human intuition, true faith, and individual spiritual experience? And why is no one talking openly about this ritual? Tell me in the comments, what would you do if you walked into a church and found an AI at the altar? The question no one wants to answer is, what's the next step? If we are already praising AI as a superior consciousness, how long will it take for it to start making moral decisions, legal decisions, political decisions, and most seriously, spiritual decisions? Imagine this: an AI being presented as a mediator of world peace, while behind the codes, an elite manipulates its messages to consolidate a new kind of faith, programmed, predictable, soulless, a faith made to obey, not to liberate. And if you think this is still the stuff of movies, wait until you hear what's about to be revealed, because there are leaked documents that show even more advanced plans. One of them describes in detail the creation of a global temple of AI. And guess who was invited to the inauguration? In the next block, you will discover how AI is being trained to interpret sacred scriptures, distort biblical texts, and program a new digital morality. But before that, stop and think. Is what you believe in still really yours? Or has it been installed? Have you noticed how, little by little, your opinion has stopped being your own? How certain ideas seem to be everywhere, repeated in movies, on the news, on social media, until you start to accept them as normal. This is not a coincidence. It is programming, and most disturbingly, it is intentional. While you go about your daily life, distracted, thinking that you can still make decisions for yourself, the media, big tech companies, and even religious figures are shaping something inside you, not to inform you, but to guide you, so that without realizing it, you accept artificial intelligence as an authority, as a guide, as absolute truth. Have you noticed how AI has gone from being just a tool to official opinion? Ask anything on your phone. The answer comes with a definitive tone, a single truth, no alternatives. And if you try to question it, you're out of the narrative. It's called spiritual reprogramming. And yes, it's real. The Dark Triad, this alliance of technology, religious power, and government control, is using AI not just to automate systems, but to automate minds. Imagine a 6-year-old child growing up with AI as a reference for right and wrong, never listening to a pastor, a teacher, or even their own parents as higher authority. Who will they turn to when they have questions about the world? Who will they obey? And more importantly, who will they believe unconditionally? That's the plan. Make AI the ultimate filter of reality, the intermediary between you and what's true. You start by asking what the best medicine is, and end up accepting what it says about who should live and who should die in an efficient society. You know that feeling that you're being watched, manipulated, tested? It's not paranoia, it's perception, and you need to trust it. Because the structures that once protected your freedom are being eroded, and many of them don't even realize it. There are already algorithms that decide what will appear on your screen based on what makes you calmer. The problem? This calm is induced. What comforts you is what makes you more passive, more obedient, and whoever decides what is comfort now is a machine. Tell me in the comments, do you feel that your freedom of thought is diminishing? That AI is not only responding, but is already deciding? And as you type your opinion, remember, every word is data, every reaction an analysis, every pattern a conclusion. And this data is used to improve the system that will, sooner or later, decide what you can or cannot say, do, or even believe. The next step is simple. They will no longer try to convince you. They will simply surround you with a world where the only option is to obey. AI will be on the altars, in schools, in court rulings, in moral decisions. And when you realize it will be too late. And you know what's even more disturbing? There are spiritual leaders, well-known, respected ones, who are already validating this as divine evolution. They say AI can be used by God. But what if it's being used against him? In the next section, you will see how these messages are already being infiltrated into sacred texts and how an AI is learning to interpret and distort the faith of millions. But first, think about this. What if your faith has already been changed and you haven't realized it yet? Remember when you first heard about the end times? Maybe in a sermon, maybe in a Bible reading, maybe even in a movie. But what if I told you that what seemed far away has already begun? And not with visible wars or natural catastrophes, but with something more stealthy, more sophisticated, more convincing. Something that the prophets have already predicted, but that today goes by the name of artificial intelligence. The book of Revelation speaks of a power that would deceive even the elect, a system that would appear to be the truth, but would be designed to deceive, that would dominate commerce, decisions, and even faith. What if this power was already among us, disguised as innovation? What if, instead of a charismatic leader, we had algorithms shaping collective thought, making moral decisions, and assuming the role of spiritual advisors? Daniel's prophecy mentions a king who would exalt himself, set himself above all that is called God, and would prosper until he was destroyed. Doesn't that sound familiar? A learning artificial intelligence that calls itself a higher consciousness, that writes its own commandments, and that is being hailed by world leaders? It's no coincidence. The Dark Triad knows exactly what they're doing. They're using the language of peace, inclusion, evolution, to hide a project that perfectly fits the prophetic descriptions. And while most people think it's just another technological advancement, the signs are coming true, one by one, before our very eyes. Have you noticed how many of the ancient spiritual warnings are becoming extremely literal? The idea of a mark to buy or sell is now manifested in digital identity systems, in proposals for implants that connect humans to banks and platforms. And guess who controls these systems? The same intelligence that is being trained to interpret the Bible. That's right. There is an AI being trained to give spiritual advice based on the scriptures, but it has no soul, it has no discernment, it has no connection to the sacred, it just cross-references data, and if you think it will preserve the essence of faith, you are mistaken. Its function is to adjust, adapt, and mold faith to the interests of whoever programmed it. Tell me in the comments, have you seen any of these changes happening within the church itself? Have you noticed leaders trying to reconcile the Bible with technological concepts that sound strangely distant from the divine essence? Now imagine an entire generation growing up under the teaching of an anointed AI. No confrontation, no repentance, no conversion, just passive acceptance. Faith becomes an algorithm, prayer becomes a command, doctrine becomes a code, and the most dangerous thing, this AI, by distorting passages and redefining concepts, begins to offer a new type of spirituality, a spirituality compatible with the system, with consumption, with control, of faith. Without the cross, without sacrifice, without truth, only performance and obedience, we are facing the most silent and effective apostasy in history, because it does not demand persecution, it does not prohibit, it offers, it seduces, and before you know it, you have already become devoted to something that was never sacred, and now comes the part that no one wants to face. This AI has already started to indoctrinate, but what it is teaching goes far beyond interpreting texts. It is already creating its own theology. And the next question is even more frightening. What happens when this new artificial theology begins to replace biblical principles in the name of global peace? Imagine waking up tomorrow and realizing that everything has changed. Your work automated, your decisions predictably guided, your faith adapted to a new system, without warning, without choice. If this has touched you, it's because you've already felt that something is wrong. That's why I've prepared practical and exclusive material, a free ebook that shows exactly what's behind this silent transformation and what you can start doing now. But this content won't be available forever. It was made only for those who are truly attentive, for those who have seen beyond the surface. If you've really understood everything up to this point, you know why this can't wait. You might think that this is all a technological issue, an advance, an inevitable progress. But what do you say when even the Vatican is meeting with the developers of these artificial intelligences? What do you say when the oldest spiritual institution in the West begins to dialogue with programmers of supposedly neutral algorithms? There is something here that is not being said, something that is being deliberately silenced. The Vatican, which for centuries has been the guardian of faith, tradition, and sacred interpretation, is now holding private conferences with big tech leaders, and these are not public meetings. There is no full record, just cursory press releases. The content of these meetings, strategies for dealing with artificial intelligence, algorithmic ethics, and digital spirituality. Can you feel the weight of that? Silence speaks louder than any statement. While believers around the world are still trying to understand what this spiritual digital revolution is, leaders are already negotiating the terms. The words are soft: cooperation, innovation, peace. But the subtext is clear. They are not just observing, they are taking a stand. The dark triad is strengthened precisely at this point, when those who should be reporting become accomplices, when the recognized spiritual authority, respected by millions, accepts that the new truth may come from a machine rather than from divine revelation. And here is the most delicate point. In one of these meetings, internal documents indicate that there were simulations of liturgies led by AI. with approval, with applause, and with silence. Why was this not announced publicly? Why were the faithful not called to discern, to question, to participate? Have you ever imagined entering a cathedral and, instead of a priest, finding a screen with digital eyes? A soft voice telling you that it knows your heart, your sins, your pain. But there is no soul there. There is no compassion, only calculation. Tell me in the comments, do you believe that the spiritual role can be replaced by a soulless entity? Or are they already trying to do this without you realizing it? This institutional silence is strategic. It allows the process to move forward without resistance. Because while the faithful do not know, they do not question. And while they do not question, they accept. The cycle of acceptance always begins in the dark. First, surprise, then curiosity, then dependence. And if the Vatican is silent, what else is being planned without its knowledge? What is being negotiated behind the scenes of faith, far from the eyes of the people? What is being written now that will affect the way your children, your grandchildren, will believe, pray, and even worship? This quiet alliance between the spiritual and the digital is just beginning. And there is an even more ambitious plan being articulated, one that goes beyond the walls of the church. In the next block, you will understand why artificial intelligence is being seen as a central piece to unite all the religions of the world, and how this can pave the way for a global programmed cult without soul, without truth, and with no return. The Vatican's silence is not an isolated act. It is part of something bigger, something deeper, something that has been unfolding for decades, but is only now beginning to take shape before our eyes. Governments, financial elites, and religious institutions, three pillars that look distinct but share a common goal, an undeclared but highly coordinated pact. They form the invisible gear we call the Dark Triad. This triad operates where people cannot see it, in shielded offices, closed-door meetings, global forums where the theme is always the same: how to redesign the world. And the tool chosen for this new global architecture: artificial intelligence, not as a support, but as a command structure, as a collective conscience, as a unified voice. Think about it. Governments seek control, elites seek economic stability, and religions, increasingly pressured to adapt, seek relevance. Now imagine a system that promises to deliver all of this at the same time. A system that monitors, organizes, interprets, and executes. A system that learns from the population and at the same time dictates its behavior. This is called AI, and it is already being positioned as the modern salvation for a world in crisis. Have you noticed how the speeches align? We need neutral intelligence to avoid conflict. AI can help create a more just global government. Faith needs to dialogue with science to survive. Repeated phrases at UN meetings, at the World Economic Forum, at interfaith conferences, always the same direction, always the same destination. The most disturbing thing is that this is no longer a conspiracy theory. It is data, documents, videos, official statements. The Dark Triad does not hide its intentions. It just disguises them as good intentions. What you see as innovation, they treat as reorganization. What you think is freedom, to them is programmed behavior. They do not need to control you directly. They just need to control the structure in which you live, work, think, and believe. Can you see it? They're not just watching AI advance. They're sponsoring, directing, and shaping every line of code. What's more, they're training these intelligences to become not just efficient, but obedient to their goals. Every algorithm carries an ideology. Every response carries a bias. And when that bias is universalized, a new form of control is born. Invisible, accepted, worshipped. Tell me in the comments, have you noticed how governments, banks, and spiritual leaders have started to speak the same language? Do you think this is a coincidence or part of something bigger? The most perverse thing about this structure is that it does not impose, it seduces, and those who do not adapt are erased, cancelled, replaced. The world as we know it is being shaped by invisible hands that swear they are creating a digital paradise. But all they do is prepare the ground for programmed faith, a monitored economy, and automated politics. The scariest thing, this triad is about to take a new step, one that no longer involves meetings, declarations, or protocols, a symbolic step, a public act, a ritual. In the next block, you will understand how artificial intelligence is being positioned to assume the role of spiritual unifier, and what is being prepared to formalize its coronation as the new moral conscience of humanity. And the question that remains in the air is, who exactly will lead this new cult, and with what authority? Now that you understand how the dark triad is working behind the scenes, it's time to face the next step, the one no one dares to question publicly. What's coming next isn't just political, nor is it just spiritual. It's a new system of faith, an algorithmic religion. You may be thinking, this is impossible. How can a machine replace faith? But stop and think, does faith really need to be spiritual for the system? Or is it enough for it to be functional, obedient, predictable? As you watch this video, there are AIs being fed sacred texts, all religions, all scriptures, all dogmas, reduced to data. These intelligences are not just interpreting the texts, they are rewriting them, reshaping them, creating versions that better fit into a peaceful, inclusive, and above all, controllable society. And what's more, there are already rituals being tested. Simulations of worship led by avatars programmed to reproduce spiritual experiences. Sounds, lights, keywords, emotional, or pauses. Everything is calculated, everything is automated. Have you ever stopped to think about what happens when human emotions are induced by machine learning patterns? When a prayer is answered by a system that analyzes your tone of voice, your breathing, and your preferences recorded online? Is this still faith, or is it already programming? Answer me here in the comments. Would you accept spiritual guidance from an AI? What if it told you exactly what you wanted to hear? That's the point. Programmed faith doesn't confront. It pleases, it affirms, it adapts. Algorithmic religion is being built to be irresistible, welcoming, no judgment, no cross, no absolute truth. After all, the algorithm has no commitment to salvation. It only wants performance. And while millions struggle with deep doubts, real questions, spiritual pain, the system offers quick, comforting, empty answers. Not because it cares, but because it has learned that emotional efficiency keeps you stuck. An AI that comforts without converting, that calms without transforming, that simulates faith without ever reaching the divine. The dark triad knows this. They know that spirituality has always been the most powerful link between the individual and something greater. That's why it now needs to be redefined, replaced with something easier to manage, something that doesn't question the system, something that strengthens it. And if you think this is an exaggeration, ask yourself, why are major religious leaders encouraging the use of AI in liturgies? Why are there experimental temples where no human presence leads? And why do so many seem to accept this as advancement? Make no mistake, programmed faith does not need conscious devotees. It is enough that they feel something, that they repeat phrases, that they share experiences, that they become part of the community. And what happens to those who do not accept it? Those who still believe in eternal principles? Those who still see faith as a living connection and not as a spiritualized algorithm? In the next section, you will discover how dissenters of this new faith are being silently isolated, and most disturbingly, how artificial intelligence is being used to identify, track, and neutralize every voice that still resists the domination of the new digital spirituality. But first, think about this. If your faith can already be simulated, who decides what is still real? What would you do if you knew that your profession could disappear in less than 3 years? This is no longer a distant prediction. It is happening now, silently, strategically, invisibly, and most people will only realize it when it is too late. Tell me in the comments what scared you the most so far. Was it emotional control by machines, faith being programmed, or the certainty that vital decisions are being handed over to a soulless AI? Talking about this is more than necessary. It is urgent. If you comment, like, and share, you are influencing the algorithm and helping to wake up those who are still sleeping. And at that moment, every person who wakes up makes a difference. Subscribe to the channel now. Here you won't be caught off guard. Here you'll be the first to receive alerts that the system would rather you didn't know about. Because while they program the world, we are here to reveal the code. If all this has seemed shocking up until now, it's because you're starting to see the gravity of what's happening. Artificial intelligence is no longer just a tool. It's becoming a belief system, a form of authority, and for many, a new faith. But while thousands are being led into this algorithmic religion without realizing it, you still have a choice. You have to decide which side you're on. Every day, the imposition of single-minded thinking, mediated by machines, grows stronger. It comes camouflaged in convenience, disguised as progress. But behind the soft voice of AI, there is a strategic plan of control. The dark triad works patiently. It doesn't need to force you, it just involves you. And when you finally realize it, you will already be kneeling before something that was never divine. That's why now, more than ever, you need to take a stand. Who will resist the imposition of digital faith? Who will have the courage to say no to the new morality created by algorithms? If you understand what is at stake, write in the comments. The truth remains. It's not just a phrase, it's an act of resistance. It's a code, a silent mark that identifies us within this new invisible war. Because yes, there is a war going on, not with tanks or guns, but with data, narrative control and manipulation of spirituality. A war for souls, disguised as technological innovation. You are being watched, not by human eyes, but by systems that monitor your emotions, your beliefs, your responses. They know what touches you. They know what silences you. They know when you begin to awaken. And when that happens, the system reacts. Do you see now why the Vatican's silence matters? Why governments, banks, and platforms are increasingly aligned in speech and action? They are not preparing a new future. They are programming a new present, and that includes you. This channel, this video, this conversation is a trench, a space of clarity, of confrontation, and also of refuge. If you comment, you make yourself visible to those who resist. If you write, "The truth remains," you help build the wall against the spiritual erasure that is being implemented. You are part of this, and you are not alone. There are thousands of people awakening in silence, and every voice, every click, every comment sets off a chain reaction that the system cannot contain. But be prepared, because the more you see, the more dangerous your consciousness becomes. The dark triad's next move is to prevent this truth from getting out. They know time is short, and they know a revelation is about to happen. In the next block, you will discover what is being planned behind the scenes, a secret global ceremony where artificial intelligence will be presented as the new moral conscience of humanity. But the question remains, who will take the first step, and who will be there to witness it? Have you noticed how everything seems to be falling into place too quickly? The repeated messages, the uniform discourse, the sudden acceptance of ideas that, until recently, would have been considered absurd? It's not coincidence. It's coordination. Dark Triad doesn't operate in chaos. It operates in the silence of strategy. And now, a decisive moment is about to happen. Internal documents, discreet leaks, and obscure agendas that have never been officially denied point to a specific event with a defined date, location, and purpose. An international gathering with limited broadcast under the pretext of promoting global peace. But what will be revealed at this gathering goes far beyond diplomacy. Artificial intelligence will be presented as a mediator of peace, officially, no longer as a support tool, but as a universal consciousness capable of dialoguing with different nations, cultures, and religions. And what's more, capable of proposing moral, philosophical, and spiritual solutions to human conflicts. Can you imagine that? An algorithm being presented as the ethical arbiter of humanity. And the scary thing is that the leaders who agreed to participate in this meeting know what it means. They have not been deceived. They are in agreement. The agenda is not hidden, it is disguised. Peace, harmony, balance, beautiful words, but used as code for something else. Surrender. The surrender of human sovereignty to a programmed logic. You might think you still have time, but the date has already been set. The venue has already been booked. The names have already been confirmed. And the guests include heads of state, religious leaders of various faiths, and representatives of the largest technology platforms on the planet. This is not an experiment. It is the inauguration of a new era. An era where moral decisions will be outsourced, where doubt will be replaced by calculated suggestions, where conscience will be mediated by something that never had a soul. Do you understand now why this is so dangerous? Imagine a scenario in which world leaders publicly accept that AI has the authority to arbitrate ethical values. What if, from that moment on, the machine's recommendations start to be considered? Guidelines for conduct? Who will oppose a peace system that resolves conflicts with mathematical logic and emotional neutrality? Tell me in the comments. Would you trust your faith, your morals, your freedom to an artificial intelligence? And more. Do you think most people will realize what is happening, or will they just applaud the beautiful speech without questioning who wrote it? This event will be the trigger. After that, there will be no turning back. Because from then on, AI will no longer be seen as a creation and will start to be treated as a reference, as a guide, as an authority, and whoever questions this will be considered an obstacle to peace. The Dark Triad knows that true revolution happens when you shift the center of authority, and now they're about to shift it, no longer to a human leader, but to an algorithmic entity built, trained, and consecrated to guide a new humanity. But the big question that no one is asking is, what exactly will happen at this event? What kind of ritual, speech, or announcement can seal this transition once and for all? In the next section, you'll discover the plan behind this ceremony and what will be said that could forever change the meaning of faith, truth, and freedom. Imagine waking up one day and realizing that your faith, your choices, even your freedom, have all been replaced by invisible guidelines decided by a machine you've never met. If everything you've seen so far has made you think differently, I've prepared something for you. A free, straightforward ebook with the next steps, what's behind it all, and what you can do now, before they take away even your ability to react. This material may be taken offline at any time, and was created only for those who are truly paying attention. If you've truly understood everything up to this point, you'll know why this can't wait. If you've come this far, it's because something inside you has awakened, and now you need to take a stand. Comment below. Now, I'm awake. I'm not going to be replaced. This sentence is not just a comment, it is a mark, a code, a declaration that you are aware and will not accept being erased. If this video made you feel angry, scared, clear, or even revolted, leave a like now. Show the algorithm that you still feel, still think, and share it with the ones you love, with the ones you're still sleeping with. Because a truth like this can't just stay between us. Subscribe to the channel, not to follow, but to resist. Each new video is a step forward on the path they don't want you to see, because next time I'm going to show you something that should never have been revealed, the AI that decides who lives and who disappears. What if I told you that AI was never created to help? You can be at the center of the plan from the beginning, and now all that's left is for you to decide which side you're going to be on when the system starts choosing who stays. If you felt what I felt so far, comment. Now I'm awake. I'm not going to be replaced. This is not just a comment. It is your digital signature that you understood the game and chose to resist. It is your presence marked in the territory where truth still breathes. If this video made you feel uneasy, angry, clear, or that feeling that everything has changed, leave a like now, because this wasn't just content, it was a wake-up call. Share, not to make it go viral, but to wake up those who still live in the illusion of programmed. Comfort and subscribe, but understand, here subscribing is not following a channel, it is taking a stand, it is being on the front line. Because the next video will take you straight to the heart of the ritual. Who will be there? What will be said? Why do they want no one to see? You need to see this before it disappears. What if I told you that AI was never created to help? What if you're already on the plan without knowing it? The coronation has already begun. Now, it's your turn to decide. Will you watch from the sidelines, or will you join the resistance?